Mikayla Blakes is looking like the player of the year.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Locked On Women's Basketball, your number one sports podcast network, free on YouTube and wherever else you get your podcasts. I'm here with Golden State Valkyries radio analyst Sophia Jones. I'm Clea Butler, the sideline reporter for the Chicago Sky. And there are some great games that happened yesterday. But before we get into that, we will break down the AP poll compared to the net rankings so far, as well as Unrivaled 1v1 seeding and what that's going to look like. Those games will be played tomorrow. But first, let's talk about Mikayla Blakes, because she was really the topic of discussion in their game against Oklahoma. Vanderbilt beat them 102-86. In that game, Mikayla Blakes had 34 points, 4 rebounds, and 6 assists. She is one of those players that is obviously so incredibly valuable, but this is her third straight game with 30 plus points, and she's the first Commodore since the 1999 to 2000 team to record 3 consecutive games with 30 or more points, while she is just the 4th SEC player in this century to accomplish the feat.
Yeah, Mikayla Blakes is one of the archetypes of player where you look at her game and she has such a deep bag that she continues to pull stuff out on instincts. Multiple counters, she can score at all 3 levels, so getting to the rim, mid-range, three-pointer, you can't take any breaks against her. And I feel like her playmaking as a whole has only developed. I mean, 6 assists, adding to that, you have the 4 rebounds. Even her defense on that end of the floor have all really improved, but she was a huge reason why Vanderbilt got this major win. I mean, putting 102 points on Oklahoma isn't easy. So this was a game that it was definitely more offensively driven in SEC play, but between her and Aubrey Galvan, they combined for 64 of Vanderbilt points. That's just a really insane backcourt to have to go up against on any night.
Yeah, and I think it's just the youth that really takes over it too, seeing how young both these players are and being able to have these significant wins in the SEC like this, obviously a very competitive conference to be in. But we've talked about it before with Mikayla Blakes, where it's just so hard to scout her because you said it perfectly. She reacts off instinct. She reads defenses so well. She can score at all 3 levels. Overall, Vanderbilt shot 49% from the field, 37% from 3, compared to Oklahoma. They had 48%, which was good from the field, but they were 2 of 23 from behind the arc.
Yeah, large part of that, I think, because Aaliyah Chavez and Zia Van got into early foul trouble. So Vanderbilt just capitalized on Oklahoma's lack of offensive production from those two. Oklahoma, they like to score early in the shot clock. They like to get that out and go, but you need stops sometimes to do that, which Oklahoma was not getting at all against Vanderbilt. They were just completely running through their offense. Sometimes it truly looked like 5-on-0 for the Commodores, but Oklahoma just really struggled. Once those two got back into the game, you could see them pick up a little bit of rhythm, but it was too far gone.
Some post-game notes from head coach Shea Rouse. She said that the team was going to make fun of her on the way over there because the first thing that they knew she was going to say is, "I'm really proud of my team." And that was the first thing that she said. She said she's really proud of the team. I think that what we're trying to do here is to be relentless in our quest for continuous improvement. Obviously, the goal is to win, but I want us to be consistent in the work. She also has mentioned just how important Mikayla is on the team, Sophia. How much does she really impact this Vanderbilt team?
Yeah, well, Shea Ralph said during a press conference that they featured on the broadcast for that game, she said, no single player is as important for their team as Mikayla Blakes is for Vanderbilt, where you remove that person from the equation and just all of a sudden they falter. And I think that's extremely valid for Mikayla Blakes and making that argument, like you said, for player of the year, because you take her off of Vanderbilt, offensive production immediately takes an extremely steep drop. Even when she's off ball, you have to have eyes on her at all times because she can do anything she wants with the ball in her hands, but catch and shoot is another very deep threat that she presents. But defensively, she applies a lot of pressure in the backcourt. She helps set the tone. Coach also mentioned she's one of their best students, very active in the community. So I think that as an all-around player and person, that's the kind of individual on court and off court when you talk about locker room and establishing that kind of leadership that Mikayla Blakes is so valuable for the Vanderbilt's turnaround.
Absolutely. And when you're just looking at some of the other players, obviously, we were talking about this a little bit as well, but with Aubrey Galvan, it still looks different without Mikayla on the team. Aubrey Galvan has come in and she had a 30-point night as well, career high for her. But I think a lot of what she does has mirrored what Mikayla Blakes has kind of set up for her in a way. And especially when we're thinking of Blakes being able to move a little bit more off ball than maybe last season. And you said it best too. Her defensive prowess has increased. Even just her ability to score on all three levels has increased too. And I think a lot of that is because of Aubrey Galvan being able to step in and take over that point guard position more consistently for her. But without Mikayla on the team, it is interesting to see what some of these freshmen would look like too, because she's just a player that you naturally want to mirror and a teammate that you want to play for. But another good one that we saw yesterday was Kentucky going up against Texas. Texas beats Kentucky 64-53. Justice Carlton led the way for Texas with 17 points. Jordan Lee came in with 13 points. Not the usual players that we see kind of taking over for Texas. What did you like about what the Longhorns did yesterday?
Well, this was the game that was going to be won through defense. Oklahoma, Vanderbilt, they like to put on a show. Texas, Kentucky, they put on a different type of show. Still a good one, but it was more defensively minded, and that is how they won this game. But from Justice Carlton, she really jumped out early for Texas, actually got them started offensively with those 17 points. She was 8 of 12. And Carlton, she's always someone that maybe not all of her statistics pop up in the box score that jumps out at you right away, but she always has an impact on the court. She's an extremely strong presence. She's a forward, but she can put it on the ground, get to the rim. Always extremely active rebounding. So even if she's not getting the rebound, you have to think about boxing her out. And it's a lot of those things and just a lot of hustle that she brings that really helps this Texas team. I think when you think of the Longhorns' identity and who they are, Justice Carlton fits right into that mold. But for Jordan Lee also bringing in those 13 points, and they needed it because there were certain stretches during that game where both teams went 4 or 5 minutes without a single made field goal. So it was going to be important for points to actually be put on the board.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Texas overall shot 46%, but they were 6 of 22 in the second half. So like you said, defense was the key for this one. They weren't necessarily going to put on an offensive show, but it's not getting any easier for them because they have to go up against number 7 Vanderbilt. This is going to be a test of Texas's defense, as we've seen, especially trying to contain Mikayla Blakes, who has just been on a roll with 3 30-plus point games, and Kentucky will host Texas A&M on Thursday.
Yeah, I'm really excited for those games. Like you said, it'll just be, for that first one you mentioned specifically, a major test between Texas's defense and Vanderbilt's offense, exactly going up head to head. So it'll be a great test for both squads.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun one that I'm looking forward to in the SEC. Coming up after this, I think Paige Bueckers is going to win the 1v1 tournament. We'll break it down for you in Unrivaled. Finding a doctor you actually like can feel like discovering a diamond in the rough. Sure, you want someone who's in network nearby and has availability, but you also want a doctor who listens, makes you feel comfortable, and explains things clearly. Going to a doctor is already kind of scary, so you want somebody that is really going to be there for you, and finding that on your own can seem like a really difficult task, but Zocdoc is really helpful when it comes to this. It's a free app and website that helps you find and book high quality in-network doctors so you can find someone you love without all the hassle. We're talking about booking in-network appointments with more than 150,000 providers across all 50 states, covering 200 specialties from primary care and dentistry to dermatology and eye care. So you get a little bit of everything. Zocdoc makes the process simple. You can search by specialty or symptoms and actually build a care team that works for you. Stop putting off those doctor's appointments and go to Zocdoc.com/LockedOnNBA to find and instantly book a doctor you love today. That's ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNBA. Zocdoc.com/LockedOnNFL. Thanks to Zocdoc for sponsoring this message. The new year is here, and it's the perfect time to reset your routine and refresh your space. If you're spending more time at home, like me, I do my podcasting at home. If I don't have a game, I am typically doing all my work at home, and I like the space around me to look good so that I can perform all my tasks. You might as well love how it looks and feels around you, so that's why you should turn to Wayfair. It's a one-stop shop for getting your home back on track. From bedding and mattresses to storage solutions for every room, Wayfair makes it easy to start the year fresh. Wayfair has everything you need for a full home refresh all in one place. Whether you're updating your living room, organizing your space, or updating your work from home setup, Wayfair's huge selection makes it easy to find exactly what works for your style and budget. I love that I could find pieces that match my style without spending a fortune. And luckily, there's actually a Wayfair pretty close to my house. And there's been some good pickups I've been able to get. So get organized, refreshed, and back on track this new year for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Okay, let's get into the one-on-one tournament for Unrivaled that is happening tomorrow. There are some exciting matchups just within the first round, but we're going to go over who the number one seeds are first. So one seeds that we are looking for is going to be Kelsey Mitchell, Alicia Gray, Paige Beckers, and Brianna Stewart. Those are the number ones. So for the first round, sorry, guys, I can't see well, so I have to zoom in. I'm getting old. But for the first round, we have Kelsey Mitchell going up against Rachel Bannum, Courtney Williams, Veronica Burton, Skylar Diggins, Jordan Canada, Kelsey Plum, Natisha Heidemann, Paige Beckers, Kate Martin, Arika Agumbawale, Brittany Sykes, Jackie Young, Tip Hayes, Chelsea Gray, and Natasha Cloud. That is on one side. On the other side, Alicia Gray, Sanaya Rivers, Ka Copper, Rakia Jackson, Marina Mabry, Sonia Citron, Ryan Howard, Ray Burrell, Brianna Stewart, Lee Yaru, Aaliyah Boston, Alyssa Thomas, Dearica Hamby, Shakira Austin, Aaliyah Edwards, and Dominique Malanga. So, Sophia, you can dive into this a little bit more. They made a little switch up from last season on how they set up the first round.
Yeah, first round last season, it was mainly, I guess you could say, a free-for-all where overall you were ranked just 1 through 8 and you went up against each other. But that led to a lot of smaller players being played against posts or forwards against big guards, however that works. But with each little quadrant, there's an increase in size. So Kelsey Mitchell is the number one seed for the quote unquote the smallest group, but we love small guards. And then you get Paige Beckers in that next little division of bigger, smaller guards. And then Alicia Gray, the big guards will go with, and Brianna Stewart with the forwards. So it's a little bit of progression, like I said. But I think each number one seed is pretty accurate, and I probably would have put them number one seeds anyway, regardless of size.
That's very fair, because when we're just looking at the overall, I'm going to use domination by these players, it doesn't really even matter the size of them. You just kind know what to expect having to go up against them. Obviously, we are not going to see last year's winner, Napheesa Collier, be playing in this because she is currently injured. But I think when we're taking a look at some players, Aaliyah Edwards made it very far. She made it all the way to the championship round against Napheesa Collier. Fee kind of cooked her in that, but she was able to pull off multiple upsets. In the tournament, they are playing up to 11. And I believe that is the score. Yeah, they're playing up to 11. Once you make it to certain rounds, you get cash out on a certain amount of prize money in terms of your runner. Your champion last year had $200,000. The runner-up was $50,000, and your semifinalists earned $25,000. And I think so whoever wins, the teammates also receive a $10,000 bonus. So last year, all the Lunar Owls were able to receive a $10,000 bonus because Fee won. So I would be like, thank you so much, Napheesa. I didn't even have to do anything to earn this extra money. But I think the cash incentives are also something really exciting about Unrivaled because there's something at stake. It's not just, an ego thing. They're playing to get some extra cash, and $200,000 doesn't sound bad. And considering how Paige Beckers reacted to earning money from free throws, I just don't think she's going to let this opportunity slip by her.
No, 1,000%. I think last year, the one-on-one tournament really helped open people's eyes to Unrivaled and how competitive it is and the high level of skill that these players have. I think it'll be exactly the same this year, because you're throwing more different players into the equation. Now there's a second year, so you have players maybe like a Brianna Stewart, who she went out in the first round by Aaliyah Edwards, didn't score any points. She might have a chip on her shoulder. I'm even looking at a Kelsey Plum, who is a number 2 seed in the same bracket or quadrant as Kelsey Mitchell. And that could be a really competitive matchup. I hope that they face each other, but that's a new face to Unrivaled this year. One of the things I am surprised with in this seeding is Arike Ogunbowale as a 4 seed in the Paige Beckers quadrant. For someone that made it far last year, and she's Arike, I would expect her to be a little bit higher personally.
I agree with you, because when we're thinking of the strengths of some of these players too, especially 1v1 matchups, when you're looking at, like, let's say late game execution, I'm thinking specifically when the Wings were playing Chicago. Chicago did end up winning the game, but Arike was the person they were giving the ball to when it came late into the fourth quarter, and she was absolutely cooking. Like, all she has to do is cross you a couple times, step back, she's hitting a 3 in your face. And once she hits the first one, she's making the next several. So also kind of curious to see why she had been put into a 4 seed. I wouldn't have been surprised. She was a 2. If you're considering some of the other players that are on here, obviously Kelsey Mitchell, Paige, all that good fun stuff. But another matchup I'm interested in is Dearica Hamby and Shakira Austin. When we're looking at the bigs, I think these are 2 players that they have similar games to an extent, but I kind of think Dearica Hamby is going to win this one. There's something, I don't know. I love Dearica Hamby, and I just think Unrivaled has really accelerated her gameplay. Same thing with Shakira Austin. But I think that kind of almost veteran bag comes to play a little bit too, where I think she can find the weaknesses of Austin kind of early and get away with a win.
Yeah, I think that Dearica Hamby, she's great player, but it'll be interesting to see, because in that matchup specifically, Dearica Hamby isn't necessarily a 3-point shooter. Mm-hmm. So if Shakira Austin does play that and backs off a little bit, plays for the drive, that could be a little bit, of a tactical choice. We'll see. And that's another really fascinating part to the one-on-ones. How many players are just going to, straight up guard, but how many are going to, maybe use a little bit of personnel knowledge and scouting reports that maybe their coaches are giving them, or even teammates, if they're not going up directly against one another because they're trying to get that money too. but that's a really good one. I'm with you. And I got to see Aaliyah Boston versus Alyssa Thomas, because I was there when Phantom and Laces played each other a couple weeks ago, and those two are very physical against each other. I'll just say that could be a really interesting one with a lot of physicality, like I said.
Yeah, I just know that I don't want to have to go up and guard Alyssa Thomas at all. And truthfully, I don't want to guard Aaliyah Boston either, but at least she seems like she'd be a little bit more kind if she pushed me down. Alyssa Thomas is going to just walk over me and be like, get up. At least Aaliyah Boston will be like, oh, I hope you're okay, but let's get back up because I'm going to do it one more time. But coming up after this, we're going to get into the AP poll compared to the net ranking at this point in the season.
Tax season does not have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax full service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert start to finish without the stress or guesswork. If you're still one of the new adults like me and Kalia, where you're not entirely sure what to do with taxes, you don't know what is what, quite frankly. I know I'm just collecting my 1099s at this point, which I realized that I would get a 1099 over a W-2 because I'm more so self-contracted. But if you're dealing with all those similar things, look at TurboTax. It's a huge time saver and gives real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling, because I am not an expert, not in the slightest. But for a limited time offer, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150, all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit turbotax.com/local to book your appointment today.
All right, so not surprising in who was at the top of the AP poll once again, UConn number one. Overall consensus just makes the most sense. They're completely undefeated. But UCLA sits at number 2, South Carolina sitting at 3, Texas at 4, Vanderbilt 5, LSU 6. I'll go over the top 10. Michigan 7, Ohio State 8, Louisville 9, Oklahoma 10. And I actually want to sneak Duke in there as well because they have climbed their way up to number 11 because they are currently undefeated in the ACC. They actually have a higher net ranking compared to where they are in the AP poll. But kind of to the argument that we had yesterday about UConn, and even though that they're playing in the Big East, UConn obviously undefeated on the season, as I already mentioned. They are perfect. But I think what's interesting is when we're talking about those, quad 1 through quad 4 wins, there's 6-0 quad 1, 5-0 quad 2, 4-0 quad 3, and 10-0 in quad 4. So when you're making arguments about, them maybe not having competition in the Big East, they are still very successful against the most difficult opponents within this top 25.
Exactly. They look at that and how you do against the quad 1, which, except for that 3-point win against Michigan, they're blowing these teams out. And they consider also how you do against any quad team. So that 10-0 record versus quad 4, if you're still beating them by 50 a game, then that's going to boost your resume. So I can still definitely see why UConn is at the top of the both AP and net rankings easily.
I mean, it's just simple. When you have AZ, Sarah Strong, your whole bench could beat a team too. We've already had all these discussions. But I do want to highlight Duke a little bit more because I feel like Duke was really kind of getting the boot at the beginning of the season. But they're riding a 15-game winning streak. They climbed 6 spots from number 11. And I think when we looked back at the beginning of the season and just trying to figure out how they were all going to come together, that was the biggest point of contention, is that they just hadn't figured out everything quite yet. But Duke hasn't lost since their 16-point defeat to LSU on December 4th. And when we're looking at the ACC, maybe it's not necessarily the strongest conference out of all of them, but they were still able to take down Louisville, who is currently ranked above them at number 9 within the AP poll. What have you just seen from their success to get to the position that there are?
They've just put together more of those positive flashes consistently. When they beat Louisville, which was a huge win for them, Kara Lawson said post-game, she was like, yeah, at the beginning of the season, all the narrative surrounding us was just very negative. And I want to say, not here on Locked On Women's Basketball, because we consistently said that we can tell that this Duke team is going to be good, that they have these really good stretches. It's just a matter of putting it together for 40 minutes or the majority of a 40 minutes. And that's what they've been doing more, specifically on the offensive end. And I think they've been great and very solid in their defense all season long, but it's that offense that's starting to come around more, which is why we're seeing this boost in this Duke team's resume.
Just want to add one more note about the Huskies, not that we don't glaze them enough a little bit, but they've won 20 consecutive games by at least 25 points, and that is the longest such streak by a Division I team in over 25 years. So then moving on, we have the UCLA, South Carolina, Texas, obviously, and then you have the undefeated UCLA Bruins that were able to defeat number 8 Michigan just by 3 points on Sunday, one of the closest games that they have had. But Michigan has shown that they can consistently play against some really top-ranked opponents as well. 3 of their 4 losses on the season have come by just 3 points to a number 1 UConn, number 2 UCLA, and number 5 Vanderbilt. And we do have to remember that this is a very young core that they have in that triple threat of their sophomores.
Yeah, and that's another reason why I think they have some of these losses, because Michigan's highs are are very comparable to that of a UConn or UCLA that you see at the top, because when those 3 are really in a great flow, when they're making shots, Michigan looks so extremely strong. It's just a matter of putting together more of those stretches. I think we talk about those late game pushes that always seem to happen. Well, if they can ever get themselves to the point where they're not having to resort to that kind of desperation, they're just leading from the jump, it's going to look scary for the entire NCAA women's basketball.
Looking at some of the conferences, the SEC remains at the top with 9 teams in the poll. Big 10 next with 7. Big 12 has 4. ACC has 3. Big East and Ivy League each have 1. But for one of the top games this week, it's going to be a battle of who is at the top of the Big 12 when number 17 TCU goes up against number 12 Baylor. That will be an exciting one, and we'll be sure to cover all those games as we continue on our week with you. But thank you all so much for watching Locked On Women's Basketball. It has been real as always. We will continue to give you the latest updates in all things women's basketball